Dean Curry here, Fantasy Football RSVP, the Curry in a Hurry show. I'm the president and founder. We are going to talk about the 2019 draft. Okay, it's never too early to talk about. In fact, it's better to talk about it now because people kind of forget in the off season who were the good players, and then they look them up and see who the scoring leaders are, but they kind of forget about like who was good and why they were good, because the short-term memory or long-term memory starts to slip, and you have other sports you're following. So I really wanted to make a video while everything is fresh in the head, and please subscribe to the channel and just so you could look back and see this, and reference it in March and April and May, and you could remember, freshly a video that was made at the end of the fantasy football season that pointed out a top 10 list, not including incoming rookies, although incoming rookies don't tend to score very high on the wide receiver market. They do a little better on the running back market. But this is the top 10 2019 draft. Please save this video because it's going to be pivotal, and I have a lot of great information. And those who don't know me, tuning in for the first time, I've been we own a sports management company for fitness. As a personal trainer, I give a lot of insight in the off season. I'm going to actually be talking a lot in the off season about injuries like Keenan Allen's hip pointer and Melvin Gordon's, knee issues and the type of strains, he had in the knees and why they were bad plays to play in the fantasy football postseason playoffs. And sure enough, they didn't perform well because, it's just knowledge I have as a personal trainer. I'm not getting it from a third-party doctor or anything like that. I've rebuilt hips, I've rebuilt knees, I've rebuilt, shoulders. So I understand what these things do. I'm also a motivational speaker, and I wrote a book, The Evolution on You and Human Development. And I understand the psychology of the game, and I talk a lot about the psychology of the game in game scripts, and the psychology, of the game. Why I thought Andrew Luck would not perform well, although he had a remarkable season. It's not his time. Why I thought Dak Prescott would not perform that well, and he did not, because there's a psychological, angle that you need to understand in human development, that those two players are probably going to, play really well, especially if both Andrew Luck gets another potent wide receiver to take the pressure off Hilton, and Dak gets another wide receiver that's very good to take the pressure off being double teamed with Cooper, and another year's growth. It's not surprising both of them missed anywhere from 6 to 8 to 7 to 9 passes that were wide open. And certainly I understand they didn't have time to throw the ball. I never like hearing that as an excuse, because good quarterbacks figure out a way, and every great quarterback, whether it's Brady or anyone else, Breeze will tell you, that's not an excuse. That's coming from them, not me. You got to figure out a way to get it done. And I knew it wouldn't be their time because you just understand the game scripts and understanding the psychology of the Dallas offense was not that type of offense. The way they were running it was just too predictable. They should have aired it out the first. And I try to be careful of ever giving advice because there are professional coaches in the NFL. That in my opinion they are professional coaches for a reason. They worked their way up and became they know what they're doing, so I don't like to critique them or anything like that. I critique players. Oh, I know more than they do. If I did, I'd be, professional coach, Instead, I'm a podcaster for fantasy football. So I don't like to take things away. And I think Garrett gets a lot of flack. He's done a pretty good job, and the Dez catch from way back when, who knows, if Dez Bryant makes that, he did make the catch, but they counted it as a touchdown. Who knows if they don't win the Super Bowl that year? Dak is still learning, and they had no wide receivers. They get Amari Cooper, they're developing. Personally, I'm not really necessarily a Cowboys fan, but, I'm impartial. I'm a podcaster, and I think people put too much heat on Garrett, and, he's done a pretty good job with the development of Dak Prescott. He wasn't really a throwing quarterback, and and he did a good job with implementing Cooper. It's just they needed a couple of more weapons. And we think very out of the box. But anyway, back to the video of this tape. Just to explain to you, we think outside the box here from a psychology standpoint, understanding the mental capacity and the physical capacity of athletes and understanding injuries. Let's go to the top 10 draft for wide receivers 2019. Now that you understand what we do here at our company and why we're different, let's start off with the number 1 pick. Who's it going to be? Is it going to be Antonio Brown? Is it going to be DeAndre Hopkins? Could it be Davante Adams? Is Michael Thomas and Tyreek Hill climbing up the list? Well, after much thought and consideration, I really feel you have to go with the most consistent growth area, and I would have to go for the number 1 pick for DeAndre Hopkins. And I'll tell you why. Antonio Brown may not be with the Steelers, maybe he is, but when you have infighting like that, again, understanding the psychology, being a motivational speaker, understanding the psychology of the game, the psychology of, working in Fortune 500 companies, when you have a bad element and you have someone at the top that is, sort of negative or coming across in the wrong way or doesn't know how to word things and how it affects the workers below them. The same runs true when you have an Antonio Brown, obviously a huge fan of AB. And, he might have, legitimate gripes. I'm not on the team, and, he probably has a lot of legitimate gripes, but it's just causing a negative impact on the team. And you could see, even with Le'Veon Bell, I mean, I understand why he, stayed out and didn't come, back. And I'm obviously a Bell fan, but it affects the team, and, what's going on with Antonio Brown, it'd be a shame for the Steelers to lose both of them, which they may. And they need a climate makeover. Because when you have that type of infighting with the team, it's no doubt. I kept telling everyone, even when the Steelers were 6-1, I was like, don't be surprised if things, fall apart, for these teams, because you can't have fighting like that, and that's why I have Antonio Brown at 2. If he's not on the Steelers, he's still Antonio Brown. It doesn't matter if it's Stafford throwing to him or, Drew Brees. He's too talented. But that's why DeAndre Hopkins is at the number 1 slot, because they have a growing offense. They're still, growing with their quarterback, and they have a good combination and chemistry and good future, and it's still developing offense. You got to like DeAndre Hopkins at the number 1. It's more of a solid pick. Antonio Brown, nothing more needs to be said. He's Antonio Brown. Doesn't matter who's throwing to him. He's going to figure it out. I like Davante Adams at number 3. The most consistent player all year long, touchdown maker, and even with the new coaching regime, the chemistry that Rodgers and Adams have, it's just beautiful to watch. I would like to see them, get someone else to really help them on offense. They have a couple of young receivers coming along, but they may need another veteran receiver, free agent, someone that could stabilize that position. That doesn't get as injured as Randall Cobb or whatever the case may be. So hopefully someone a little bigger. They could just roll the dice with developing their wide receivers, but I would like to see a veteran receiver on that team, even if he doesn't play every down. Just someone you could plant in there that just gives a little more stability on the offense. And I would, obviously, with the new coach, I would like them to use the tight end. I mean, you have Jimmy Grant. He's running around out there blocking and stuff. He's not even getting targets. And I'm not saying that's Aaron Rodgers' fault, of course. Rodgers is phenomenal quarterback, incredible. But you got to incorporate, in today's world, you got to incorporate the wide receiver. I mean, look at the teams that are, like the Chiefs, the Eagles. You really got to incorporate, the Patriots have been doing it for a long time. It just gives another dimension to a team. Michael Thomas is a solid number 4. He could go higher for a lot of reasons. But until they really get a second receiver that can pull attention away from him, he tailed off a lot at the end of the season. People started figuring him out a little. And he's a solid number 4. I do like Tyreek Hill at number 5. I gotta say, Tyreek Hill could go a lot higher. I think he's going to do phenomenal next year. I'd love to have him on my team. He's just, he benefited from Sammy Watkins being out. Because if Sammy Watkins was in there when he was in there, Sammy was getting a lot more targets his way. And Sammy does get injured quite a bit, but Tyreek Hill isn't a big receiver, but he, like I said, he definitely is climbing the charts, and I'm really liking him. Except I like the other 4 a little bit more than him. At number 6, it's a strange pick. He could have fallen out of the top 10 for sure, and it's not based on his talent. And it's Odell Beckham. I mean, he's too good not to include at number 6. And I would obviously have Beckham a lot higher, but he has a lot of knick-knack injuries. I don't know if he needs to work on his, training, flexibility, or, maybe as a personal trainer, if I was his trainer, I might explain to him about, the routes he runs and putting himself in a position to get hurt. He fights for a lot of yards, but there's reasons why certain receivers don't get hurt, and there's reasons why other receivers do. It has a lot to do with route running, something I understand a little bit about. I train a lot of athletes for a lot of sports, and it's not so important to just run routes and catch the ball and run and be a great receiver, which he obviously is talented beyond belief. But you have to put yourself in position, footwork, something a personal trainer deals with a lot, in angles to not put yourself in a position to get hit. Someone who does it really, really well, he's a running back, is Le'Veon Bell. And it's amazing how no one ever gets a clean shot on the guy, when he plays, and he's even talked about it. He tries to play the game in a way where no one can get like a clean shot on him, and he runs that way. Something, if I was a trainer with Odell Beckham, I'd talk to him about, not so much football, but how to avoid certain hits, certain cuts. He's pretty much carrying a lot of what happens. They have Shepard, he's coming along on offense, but he's too talented not to include at 6. But the fact that he doesn't stay on the field, I got to say, with the 6th pick, although Beckham's a great player, he's a risk. I would put Julio Jones at number 7. He's Julio Jones. He's a target monster. His touchdowns did go up this year. Julio Jones could go higher, but he also has problems with a lot of knick-knack injuries that actually are even below the knee. He's had some issues with his feet and ankles, turf toe, different things like that. Lower leg injuries tend to be a huge issue, and that's why AJ Green is not on this list in the top 10, because he's had a recurring foot injury. And AJ Green could be 4 or 5 or anything like that, but he's not going to be in my top 10 because the injuries he's getting in the feet and toes, I mean, these are really bad injuries. And, he's a great player when he plays. But their offense is not solidified. The coaching staff is not solidified. And he's had some real issues with his feet, and that just scares me. And it actually dropped him out of the top 10 for me. But I do like Adam Thielen, another target monster, at 8. Adam Thielen could go 3 or 4. But there's real problems on the offense of the Vikings, and I see it continuing. It's not so much Cousins' fault as it is, does Cousins fit their scheme and the way that they're trying to play football? Does a guy like Casey Keenum do a little better in that type of offense, or a different type of quarterback? Certain quarterbacks fit certain systems, and there was a disconnect all year, and people looking at Thielen's numbers, wow, but look what happened at the end of the year. Minnesota fell apart, and they have so much talent on that team. For them not to make the playoffs is just a crime, and coming into that offense, I just don't understand how they didn't make the playoffs. I mean, that's just, horrific. And, so they have real issues. It made me drop Adam Thielen to number 8 and made me drop Stephon Diggs out of the top 10. And I do like them both, but I think Adam Thielen at 8 is a good pick behind the other players. At number 9 is a player that should be a lot higher. It's Keenan Allen. He's known for starting the first 8 games slow. And, you start off the first 6 to 8 games slow, that's enough to get you out of the fantasy playoffs. Doesn't matter how many points he put up late in the season. He always gets injured at the end of the season. It's every single year, and it's a risk. So because of that, I have to drop Keenan Allen all the way to 9, which I hate doing. And number 10 is a sleeper pick, another guy that gets injured from time to time. But it's T.Y. Hilton. And when he's healthy, T.Y. could be in the top 5. He's that good. But he's had some injuries with the hamstring numerous times. They really need another receiver. I'd really like to see the Colts get another solid receiver because T.Y. Hilton has to work so hard to get open. And that's what, understanding psychology, that's what leads to a lot of his injuries. I could probably say the same for Keenan Allen. He's got to work too hard, although they have the Williams, the double duo there that are coming along. Mike Williams had a bounce back year. Tyrell Williams played pretty well this year too. So T.Y. Hilton, I have him at number 10. He's my sleeper pick at number 10 because he could go a lot higher than that, especially if he's healthy. There are certain people I left out of the top 10, not just A.J. Green, that might surprise you, and that's Mike Evans. The reason why, and I think Mike Evans could be a real sleeper pick because Arians, the new coach, loves to throw the ball. And you might see Evans have a real bounce back year, and they're solidifying things here. So, Evans could easily be in the top 10. He could be in the top 5 or 6. But so he's a sleeper pick. I just like the other players better. Amari Cooper as well. His numbers will be good. Can he make the top 10? Very possibly, especially if Dallas gets another wide receiver. Stephon Diggs is right on 10 too. It was hard not to include him. And it was hard to not include Juju Smith-Schuster because if AB, Antonio Brown's out, and Juju Smith-Schuster is the number 1, he could easily be in the top 10. He could be in the top 6 or 7, So those are things to watch. Obviously it's hard to make a top 10 list because all these, and there's many other wide receivers I didn't even mention that could easily be in the top 10. So don't, make it so strict. Like, why didn't you include this guy? I couldn't include everyone in the top 10. But in my opinion, for the reasons why I stated, I really believe that these are the top 10 for the draft of 2019. So save this, okay, and keep it in your arsenal so, when March and April and May start to roll around, you don't forget why these guys were good, or you're not just looking at like scoring leaders, but you actually have a video that explains, in detail what goes on. So I will be subscribed to the channel certainly because I will be updating it with tight ends next week. Ranking them and forecasting them, and then I will be doing quarterbacks, defenses, things like that. And all throughout the season, I'm going to be coming up with more and more and more information, analysis, how to draft, how not to draft, how to win your draft, how to trade effectively, the way to go about trading. Every week I'm going to be coming out, flooding you with information. So definitely subscribe and go to, the best place to go to, believe it or not, is our Twitter account, because that I update and tweet at least several times a day, and I update a lot of information on Twitter. Little bits and pieces of information that change, believe it or not, every few days, even in the off season. There's trades happening, and guys getting fired, and different things happening. Rookies are starting to materialize as candidates. There's always more and more information. We have the American Allegiance of Football, another professional football league, which I will be podcasting on as well. So we'll have football all year round, it's great. So, but our Twitter account is FFootball, RSVP, that's F Football RSVP. And go on our Twitter account, ask questions. Good time to ask questions. It's the off season. And have yourself a wonderful day. Again, this is a top 10 wide receiver list for the draft of this upcoming year, 2019. I hope you enjoyed the show.